Welcome to Lisbon's historic Main Street. The downtown commercial district was designated to the National Register of Historic Places in November of 2019. Many of the buildings are well over 100 years old, having been built in the late 1800s. The historic commercial district in Lisbon includes the 100 blocks of East and West Main Street, with the district centered around the intersection of Washington Street. Locally known as the Opera House, this building was erected in 1893 by the Lisbon Lodge number 162 of the International Order of Odd Fellows. Construction of the stone foundation began in May of 1893 with the completed building dedicated in December of that same year. Its primary function was to serve as an opera house and theater. The area was used for plays, sporting events, graduations, and even a roller skating rink over the years. Over the years, the third floor of the building has housed fraternal organizations such as the International Order of Odd Fellows, the Lisbon Legion, the Lisbon Benjamin Franklin Lodge, and the Masons. In the 1910s, the Lisbon Opera House was touted as the only theater in Lisbon and Mount Vernon, Iowa. In June of 1925, the Lisbon Independent School District purchased the Opera House portion of the building and used the area as a gymnasium and auditorium until a new school and gymnasium could be built. Today, the building is owned by the Lloyd Table Company, who utilizes the space for manufacturing of medical tables and material storage. Pictured here is the Merchants Block, which was built in 1878. Prior to its construction, this location had wooden store buildings that housed a general store, a drugstore, and a furniture store. Merchants Block has served as a busy commercial hub since the time of those original wooden buildings. Unit 102 housed the Ramsey Drugstore in 1919 and later served as the Alfred Wilson Grocery Store, the Earl Wilson Grocery Store, and even later the Lion's Den. Today, Unit 102 is home to the Lisbon History Center. The 104 unit continued to be the Fletcher and Runkle drugstore until around 1885, followed by the City Restaurant, the Pearson Vital Hardware Store, a clothing store, and a shoe repair shop. In the mid to late 20th century, it was the Seidel Restaurant and the Greenhouse Restaurant and Lounge. The 110 unit variously housed the Jonas B. Galby Furniture Store, various drugstores, Heft Hardware, and Blarney's Tavern. The 114 unit historically housed Smith and Runkle Confectioners. Historical photographs, as seen here in circa 1890, identifies Unit 116 East Main Street as a meat market. In fact, the large meat hook is present on the interior towards the rear of the building today. From 1886 to 1922, Unit 122, pictured here on the right, was owned by Dr. Edwin Bird, an eye doctor and surgeon. It was then purchased by Dr. Edward Baker, a dentist, and in 1965 it was purchased by Dr. Paul Cook, also a dentist, who owned the building through 1992. In 1894, the Lisbon Post Office was located here at 126 East Main Street and a harness shop here in the early 1900s. Many businesses have operated out of 132 East Main Street, such as a dry goods store, a newspaper, a candy shop, and restaurants. In 1928, a bank and at one time the Lisbon Library was located here. The building is best known for its mid to late 20th century history as the Best Oil Company. "134 East Main Street was a residence for much of its history, built in 1881. In 1936, Dr. Bigger had his residence on the first floor and his dental office on the second floor. In recent years, the building was saved from demolition through efforts of the Lisbon Historic Preservation Commission. The building has been refurbished. It now houses a plumbing business. Located at 145 East Main Street was a building reportedly built by Adam Runkle in 1899. The Runkle family were among the pioneer settlers of Lisbon and were associated with several of the commercial buildings still existing in the district today. In 1928, the building housed 2 unidentified stores on the first floor and a hotel on the second floor. Historically, the building here located at 133 East Main Street first housed a Chrysler and Plymouth car dealership and repair garage. The building's early 20th century history as an automobile dealership and repair garage with gas pumps out front links it to the traffic along Main Street, which was then part of the Transcontinental Lincoln Highway and its later designation as U.S. Highway 30. The building located at 109 through 111 East Main Street was built in 1876 for Mrs. Amos Runkle and was known as the Centennial Block because it was built during the nation's centennial year. According to an advertisement in 1879, the building was occupied by the Boot and Shoe Emporium of Amos K. Runkle. Above the Boot and Shoe Emporium was the medical office of Dr. A. H. Delano, and also a millinery. A drugstore was to the west of the Boot and Shoe Emporium, and by the 1900s, they added wallpaper and stationery to its inventory. 1906 Sanborn maps indicate a grocery store in the west unit and a jewelry store in the east unit, with a telephone office on the second floor, located here at 129 East Main Street. Early records indicate a bakery and a millinery operating here at 125 East Main Street. Around 1948, Donald and Ruth Clark operated a Firestone store from this location. According to research materials at the Lisbon History Center, the building located at 119 East Main Street housed George D. Saylor's law office. Saylor was also the postmaster. It is also known that the building housed medical office of Dr. John Gardner, a physician and surgeon who came to Lisbon in 1900. Dr. Gardner's medical practice spanned over 6 decades. He also served as Lisbon's mayor from 1906 to 1916. The building has housed various insurance businesses and currently houses the Lisbon Insurance Company. The building here, located at 117 East Main Street, was built in 1877 by Daniel Buck for a general merchandise store. By the 1890s, the building housed the dry good and clothing store of J.M. Furness & Son. In 1900, it housed a boot and shoe and jewelry store, and in 1906, a clothing store. The corner of 103 West Main Street has been home to banks for its entire history. It became the Lisbon Bank and Trust by the late 20th century and is Hills Bank and Trust today. The second floor was home to the Knights of Pythias Lodge and was also used for city council meetings. This brick block was preceded by another large brick block of store buildings known as the Union Block, and it was built in 1875. That building was largely destroyed in an 1894 fire. The oldest existing building in the district is located here at 101 East Main Street, built in 1875. It housed Wink and Hauser's hardware, tinware, grocery, and notion store. The second floor of the building was a social hall, the first public meeting place in Lisbon. In 1956, the Lisbon Public Library moved into this building and remains here today. In 1909, the Lisbon community began celebrating its Pennsylvania Dutch heritage by holding an annual celebration known as Sauerkraut Day. The height of Sauerkraut Day's popularity was in the 1930s, when crowd sizes were estimated at 15,000 people. The celebration has served to reinforce community pride and the town's historical ethnic identity, as well as to draw people to Lisbon's Main Street, where the businesses certainly benefit from the influx of people coming to town. The Lisbon Main Street Historic District continues to serve as the community's central hub of commercial activities, just as it did in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.